heard Sarah is the granddaughter, one of Eddie's granddaughters. Thanks, Sarah, for being part of this. One of Eddie's grandchildren, and she is 20 years old now, but obviously has very recent experience in the school system. So she can speak a little to how she feels about the education system and also what it's like to be the direct descendant of a Holocaust survivor. So Sarah, thank you.
That's okay. Thank you for having me.
What's it been like for you growing up to have, such an incredible grandfather, and I know your Opa is very proud of you. What's it like to have him as a grandfather and to hear those stories firsthand?
It was very inspirational, actually. So obviously, growing up with Opa, I heard those stories from the time I could understand them, really. Even before that, I was like 3 years old hearing these incredible stories. And it really resonated within us as all his grandchildren, not just myself, my brother, my two cousins, that no matter race, gender, sexuality, whatever it is, no one should ever be persecuted on the basis of any being different. We are all human beings. We should all be treated with respect. And nothing like the Holocaust should ever happen again. And I think that really resonated with me and gave me a different perspective to quite a lot of my peers who didn't grow up learning about this because they didn't have those kind of stories to grow up with and learn about. So yeah.
The school you went to, we should say, it was a non-Jewish school.
Yes.
It was a private girls' school.
Yes, a Catholic private girls' school, yes.
What was your experience in terms of your peers' understanding about the Holocaust? Was this something that they were familiar with, or how did they talk about the issue, if at all?
They didn't handle it well. It was very much an environment, maybe I want to say that it's just my year group, but I can for sure say that it wasn't just my year group who would go around making jokes about it. It was kind of the butt of the joke. People didn't take it seriously. People didn't understand the severity of what they were saying. It was very immature and very much just anti-Semitic in a way. It would be dirty Jew, they deserved it, kind of idolized Adolf Hitler in a way and said they got what they deserved. Just very disgusting things. And I think it's basically due to, unlike myself, having my grandfather hearing these stories, having that face to this traumatic event. People didn't have that human understanding and human empathy. They just read something in a textbook, hear something in the news. They don't understand that these are real people. That for me, and even them, it's their grandparents' generation. It's not that far from us to not be able to understand. And it was just, I don't know what word, ignorance. It was just ignorant and just not having that education.
It's so disturbing to hear you say that because, we've all read the reports recently
100%.
About, particularly private boys' schools, and to hear that it's happening even at private girls' schools, how endemic this issue is.
Yeah.
Just really...
Well, when you have, influential figures like Kanye West posting on social media anti-Semitic remarks, when you have impressionable teenagers or even young adults who idolize this figure going on public platforms to millions and millions of followers, saying such disgusting anti-Semitic remarks, even about the Holocaust, which is not something that should ever be joked about or have these remarks made about. Of course, impressionable teenagers look at someone like him and take that on board. And without having that education, they don't have the understanding of what this man is saying and the platform he has, he shouldn't have. And he shouldn't even have the right to be able to say something like that and put it on a public platform.
But what was it like in the syllabus? What was, the official curriculum? Were you taught much about the Holocaust at school? Do you think it was adequate?
We were taught about the Holocaust. However, I don't think... We're taught about it in Year 10 for a few weeks. Great. My school, I guess, was a bit different probably to maybe other schools because once my history teacher, who was an absolute amazing woman, heard that my grandfather was a Holocaust survivor, she actually made the effort to go to my school board and ask to have him speak to our school. So on Anzac Day in 18, they invited Opa and my father, because he served in the Australian Army, to speak to the school of 2000. And I feel like that, for our school, gave a different perspective as it gave that human face to this event.
Did people change in how they
Yes, they
spoke
did.
about it afterwards?
Yes, they did. It definitely created a whole different atmosphere and a more empathy, gave a more empathetic approach to this event. It created interest. It created, oh my gosh, this person went through that. It's not just what we read in a textbook. It isn't just the boy in striped pajamas. That's based really on fiction, because it's not a true story. You know, it's not just one person, Anne Frank. It's real people. That it's not just about them being Jewish. These are just real people. Take that aspect away from them. These are real people who suffered one of the worst mass genocides and systematic murders in modern history, and it's not something to take the piss out of. Sorry.
Sarah isn't afraid to use the hard language, Eddie. I know you were trying to soften it a little bit for the audience.
Sorry.
But she's speaking it as it is.
We're all adults here. Semi.
Sarah, so what do you think needs to happen? As someone who's, just out of school a couple of years, what would you like to see? Eddie's obviously a great ambassador for this message. It'd be great to get him out to every single school in the country,
100%.
but there's not many Holocaust survivors left.
No.
What would you like to see happen? How can it change?
Oprah and I actually had this conversation at lunch a few weeks ago, and there was 2 things in the syllabus that I did modern history in school. I loved modern history. I believe the way we improve the future is learning from the past. And if we don't learn from the past, how can we improve the future? And education is so key to our development as human beings, not just morally, but for society and for the future generations. So, as said, did modern history in the HSC. One of the core units was learning about the rise of dictatorship, which we studied Adolf Hitler, Mussolini, and the guy from Japan. Sorry, I don't remember his name. I do think it's important that we learnt about that. However, I do believe that we shouldn't be giving a platform learning about the rise of this horrible, horrible man who really murdered approximately 6 million Jews. It would be kind of a suggestion to change that to how these survivors, the positive things they did after the war and what happened to survivors after the war. It wasn't just the war ended, they went back to their home countries and, lived normally again. As you heard from my Opa, that wasn't the case. And that's what we aren't learning in the curriculum and what it should kind of be focused around. And the way we can do that is by getting survivors like my grandfather to come and talk, putting that human face to the events and learning from first world perspectives, not just second world.
Yeah, well said. It's so much more about just the number of casualties. It's how it impacted survivors and their families for the rest of their lives as well. Sarah, thank you so much for your perspective. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.